folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris White Africa here on the Indaba Africa channel, part of the Indaba Broadcasting Network on a Wednesday. That's always hump day, middle of the week's my longest day, what with all my broadcast online and then my radio program at night. And today it's even longer, but I'm happy to do it. I have a special featured guest today. And I have none other than the candidate for the mayoral position in the mother city, Lieutenant General retired, and I'll make sure I pronounce this correctly. I probably won't, but Lennit Max. Did I get it right, sir? Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome and appreciate you coming on the program so we can talk a little bit about you were running for mayor in Cape Town and what's going on there, because this election is certainly starting to get a little bit of the world's attention as things begin to hot up for the election on the 1st of November. So let me ask you this quick question. Now, you have been a member of several parties. You've tried them all out. I guess it's kind of like, looking for the right horse. You go to the stables and this one doesn't quite work out, or they decide to be difficult and change their opinion. You go elsewhere. So one thing I want to get right out of the gate up here, I think you've been a member of the Independent Democrats, the ANC, the Democratic Alliance, and now you've recently latched up with the Freedom Front Plus. Have I guessed correctly why you might have left parties, or was each situation a different one?
And I had to leave, And with the Democrats, yes, I was there with them. I worked hard to increase their votes. They used me in a special project. After they got it, Helen Ziller put me on the back burner because of a difference of opinion. So I was not the only one who had a difference of opinion, which was punished in that way. There's a lot. Lindiwe Masibuku, Wilmo James, Musi Maimani, Patricia Dalil, and then they put me with all these skills as a lawyer as well as the police commissioner, with all the crime prevention skills, in spite of the fact that the people are being killed on the Cape Flats on a daily basis. They didn't want to use my skills to deploy me in a relevant portfolio or other job. They give me, a portfolio, which they call it sports and culture. I have to watch ballet and historical, buildings. And while sitting there very frustrated, I didn't intend to leave the party. But obviously the ANC government, the National Minister of Police, invited me to become his special advisor at the police. Now, as you can imagine, I had a rough time with Patricia because I acted in terms of the law as a patriot and as a law-abiding citizen, as well as a legal obligation in terms of the act and as a former police commissioner. And with the DA sitting there with all the skills, being offered this position to serve the people, because that is what I was looking for all the time, as an opportunity to serve the people, not myself or a political party per se. Once offered this position, I could not decline that invitation because that was my goal, to serve the people. And I then left and took up this particular position, where I made several proposals, among others, the institution of the anti-gang unit, which has been implemented countrywide. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but my contract was only for a year. And yes, and thereafter I opened up my own company, a consultative company. And but I didn't practice politics in the ANC. I was just a member of the ANC because I was working with the national minister of the ANC. You understand?
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. And then whilst at home, because we all work from home, I got this visit from the Freedom Front. inviting me to say, listen, Lennit, you got all the skills. You can't sit at home. We need you. People are dying. You got the skills. You got your qualifications. Among others, I've got a master's at law, and I'm busy with a doctorate at law. And we want to give you the opportunity to serve the people once again. And I told them, listen, don't be under any, misunderstanding that if I join you, that I do so to earn a salary. I said, I'm not interested in a salary. My first objective is, my first prize is, will I be able to serve the people? And they say they don't have any different agenda. And that is the reason I left the others, and that is patriotism. Because in the politics, the communities complain that members of political parties serve the parties and not the people. So in this instance, you can clearly see I left because I served the country. I acted as a law-abiding citizen, and in terms of the legal prescripts of our country. And I left the DA because they didn't use me to serve the people directly. And I left the ANC because there was continuous allegations of corruption. And on the 4th of July, the ANC structures deliberately, openly, with impunity, transgress our regulations, COVID regulations. And I said, I cannot anymore affiliate myself and associate myself with the ANC. And then I resigned. And after that, the Freedom Front approached me, and I didn't expect that they will do so. And once they said to me, we want to use you to serve South Africa because you've got a lot to give to the country. And on that basis, I am with them.
No, absolutely. Very quickly, a couple things to unpack there. But the first thing is that we had a slight audio problem at the beginning. Let me say what I heard, and if I interpret this wrong, give you a chance to correct it or tell me if I got it right. At the beginning, when I was talking, I started mentioning that you've been a member of several political parties, and you've gone Independent Democrats, ANC, DA, and now Freedom Front Plus. And I'd ask how that came about. Was it a consequence of, like getting a horse out of the stable, and this one doesn't work out right for you, so you go back and get one, and eventually find the right one? And you actually said you were explaining that when you're with Independent Democrats as a police officer or a police leader in police leadership, you come across some corruption and reported it, and then that thing kind of blew back on you. And did I get that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And my audience didn't get a chance to hear all that because of the audio problem. We've got it fixed now. But the rest of what you said, everyone was able to hear. So the thing is that it's interesting you say the things you're talking about, because it's the same with me. I passed up many opportunities at very lucrative employment in the telecommunications and the internet businesses back in the 90s to stay in uniform and serve my nation. And I served 36 and a half years in the Army because it wasn't about money. I mean, you need enough to live off of, but it wasn't about money. It was it's about the nation and the people. And it sounds like that's what you're all about. So you are now running or standing as mayor for Cape Town. Let me see if I can explain this to my international audience. You tell me if I get this wrong or fix whatever I get wrong. So you run, I think, now this is where I got to be corrected maybe. I think that you are put up as a representative for a ward, and then once the government's formed in the city, whoever has majority or coalition picks someone, and you're the candidate that come from that. Is that correct? It's not as if you're running for the office separately. I mean, you don't go to the ballot and there it says mayor. Do they pick and say you or Brett Herron or the other candidates? How does that work?
Yeah, with the Freedom Front, there's in our system, the election system, there are two ways. The one is a ward candidate, and the other one is a PR.
That's a proportional representative.
Proportional representation. Yeah. So yes, and I'm first on the list. Your mayoral candidate is normally the first one on the list on the proportional representation. Mm-hmm. And they also pick up the votes which you get in the ward, and they add that with some sort of calculations, mathematical calculations, and they determine then what is your end result and how many votes you get and which party get what percentage. So yes, I am on the proportional list, and that is how it works. And then once the results are actually available, and there's no clear winner, a 50 plus 1, then negotiations is going to kick in. And then maybe there will be a kingmaker. And it's not, the mayoral position is not depending on who got the biggest number of votes. Not at all, because without your smaller party, you can't govern. So, but then there is negotiations, and in our case, as the Freedom Front, we will not enter into negotiations and partnerships with people who don't share our values, and principles. And I would like to make it clear that we will never, engage in partnership with the EFF or the ANC.
Well, I certainly can't argue with that. It's another thing interesting when you talk about serving the nation and patriotism. Recently, Major General retired Bantu Holomisa from the United Democratic Movement, a party that's been losing ground progressively over the past few elections. But nonetheless, it's still important in the Eastern Cape, and particularly in Nelson Mandela Bay, or Berna, as it's called now from the Khoisan word. But yeah, I'm not very good at pronouncing it. Yeah. My Khoi skills and San skills are not up to par. But he recently said something similar that this week when he was interviewed by the Daily Maverick, talking about taking the politics out of governance. And it sounds to me like that's what you're focused on here. It's about serving the people. It's not serving your political party, which is what the ANC is really becoming. I've always told people, I said, one of the problems of the ANC is when you take people from all over the country and deploy your cadre down to places like the Western Cape, where they come down, they don't speak Afrikaans, they don't speak English very well, they don't speak Xhosa, and they're alien to the people around there, yet they're supposed to represent those people. They're not there to represent your people on the street. They're there to answer to Lutuli House. And that, I think, has been a major problem with politics in South Africa the past 2 decades. Would you agree, or do you think that's unfair?
Exactly. Your opinion is spot on. And that is for that particular reason where I said no political party's T-shirt will stop me from serving our people. You understand? There's more than 100 political parties. And even a political party cannot capture you. So, the ANC and some people in the DA, they know that they are not being used, but they sit there for the salaries. You understand?
Oh,
and the dam with the communities. But I just act on the other way around, and that is for me my satisfaction. And as you indicate, the salary is important, but my satisfaction is if I can bring change to one person per day or in my tenure as a political representative, then it is worth. As long as I try, I might fail, but I must not stop trying serving people.
Well, I want to make sure that we're straight on this because a lot of people know who you are. You're well known, both as a senior police leader in the Western Cape and also as an advocate. And now that you've announced, and of course, having been different parties, some people know you from that. But a lot of people outside don't know you in South Africa. So I think that it's a good question to ask here, and also for my audience that may want to keep up on what happens. So let me run a what if. So this, in order for us to see you on the city council, what's going to have to happen is the Freedom Front Plus, because your party, all the parties, they make a list of their candidates in order and they rank them, and you're number one on that list for proportional representation. So that means, for my audience, if the Freedom Front Plus achieves enough of a percentage of the vote, then they'll get at least a seat or maybe more seats on the council based on proportional representation. You would be the first to go in. That would put you on the city council for Cape Town. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. So
that's absolutely correct.
Okay. And if for some reason the Freedom Front didn't achieve that threshold because you're not running in a specific ward as a candidate there, then we wouldn't see you on the council if that were the case.
Yeah, I'm actually running in both the ward well as yeah.
Okay, then we're likely to see you on the city council in either case. Okay. Well, I asked that because I don't want this to be a flash in the pan. Hey, we had Lennit Max on, and he was a great interview and told us a lot of things we found interesting, compelling, but where'd that oak go? We haven't heard from him in a few months. Yeah. Well, it looks like you probably have a good chance of making it on the council then. And as we talked about, if one party doesn't get an outright majority of 50+1 on the council, then they have to enter negotiations for a coalition. And the coalition doesn't necessarily mean the largest party has the mayor position. It's the same in Iceland, where the three-party coalition there, the mayor was Katrin Jakobsdottir, and she actually had the smallest number of members of parliament in that three-party coalition, but she was picked as the best candidate. Although I don't think she's going to stay prime minister much longer because her party lost seats, so she might be stepping aside. So it's very possible, in fact, that you could become the next mayor of Cape Town.
That's correct. That's correct. It depends. Once you negotiate, you don't, because we've got 30 municipalities and about 4-5 district municipalities. So what is going to happen is, once you are in the negotiating phase in Cape Town, now both parties might have also representation, one seat at the other municipalities in the province. So it is not that you only negotiate for the city of Cape Town. The negotiations is, involves all the other municipalities as well. And you can also say, okay, if you want to have the city of Cape Town mayoral's candidate, and we can demand and say, okay, in that case, if you want this mayoral seat, we've got also representation in the provincial government. Then we also want, then in exchange for the mayoral seat, part of our negotiations, you people have to provide us with one seat in the province as well for the executive. So that is how the negotiations work, and it can go either way. But it is a very interesting exercise. But what is important for a partnership to last? We had these coalitions in the past with the DA and the EFF. And it was disastrous, in the city of Tshwane in Johannesburg. So, but the model which we will embark upon is that, as we canvass, we've got our own manifestos, each party. Now, once the two parties or three parties, it depends how many parties is needed to actually to get to 50+1, then you have to negotiate a different manifesto, which includes the interests or the topics of all the parties going to be in this particular coalition. And that will be the binding factor. And not that each party actually pursue their own once you actually serve the same people from the same government.
Well, it's people have asked already in the chat a question I'm going to get to, not right now, we're going to get to a bit later on. That's about violence in the Western Cape and obviously in the Cape Flats. I think you're probably a person uniquely suited to address this topic and talk about it, but let's get to that a little bit later on. So Cape Town, the mother city, it's fascinating how the media runs around and portrays that city and how it's run and how it's not run. Cape Town certainly has its challenges, but remember, it wasn't all that long ago, day zero. I took a look yesterday at satellite imagery, and all of the reservoirs for Cape Town are at 100% capacity. The media is talking about global warming, climate change. Not that these things aren't legitimate topics, but of course the city of Cape Town has some real challenges. Let me ask you about that. So, for instance, no real clear gray water or brown water reuse program. To use water, recycle it for watering lawns and washing streets and stuff like that. Notoriously leaky pipes that haven't been repaired in decades under the National Party, the ANC, or the DA, as well as the tragedy of the commons. You go into townships where there's a single tap and it's just left running all the time as the car cleaners come over and fill their buckets, and people just leave it on. These are all challenges. Is this something, service delivery, in particular water, an issue that the Freedom Front Plus is looking at and wants to tackle?
Of course, water is life. If there's no water, there's no life. And, we have learned from past experience what drought actually, did to our economy and our people. So it will be naive for any municipality, and especially Cape Town, not to embark on any alternative, mechanisms and plans to generate fresh water from the sea once it happens again. So you have to prepare, upfront for that particular scenario. And on the other hand, it is, as you indicated, that water leaks is a huge problem, and you can save a lot of water if you attend to these leaks, and also to educate people, how to use this very scarce resource and very important resource, and don't take it as a given that there will be water every day when they open up the tap. And it's for that particular reason that we will have some sort of programs in the community where you identify your street committees or your ward committee to take charge of that particular ward, to monitor and to see that people apply to the regulations, and also look after their own resources.
Now, we're going to have a lighthearted moment here for a moment, if you don't mind, Lennox. One of my viewers here in the States said he's got Matrix glasses on. Are you actually Morpheus? Should I take the red pill or the blue pill? That's actually funny. So that's nice to have a lighthearted moment. But so another issue here that's, of course, this is a touchstone in South Africa. And, of course, having covered this. Oh, you don't have to take them off. They look great. People like them. Yeah, you can leave those on. People like them. But no, it's something I've written about extensively and something I covered in the classified world as intelligence analyst while serving in active duty, and have talked about publicly and written about for a number of years. And it's an issue that is misrepresented by, I believe, parties on all sides when they conveniently forget facts about the matter. And that's the topic of land. Now, this is a real issue in Cape Town. I mean, Cape Town's not growing. It's not expanding into the Atlantic. There's only so much space there. Of course, the famous removals like District 6 back in the 1960s, and lots of questions around land. Is this a topic that the Freedom Front Plus is looking at, or something they're going to address? The Democratic Alliance has touched on it. The ANC has been lying to its rubes who think that it's going to do something, but their policy of land has been very mixed. Any thoughts about your party? And if you come in as mayor, will it be something you'll focus on? Because, land, one of the big issues in South Africa is people, the ANC is misleading people saying everybody wants to be a farmer. No, most South Africans don't want to be farmers. I've been a farmer. It's not an easy life. Most people want a piece of land, a plot where they can have a house and a home and do something with it. And I think that's a major concern in Cape Town, was people looking for living space. Any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, that's right. The broader land issue is not really applicable to the city of Cape Town. Mm-hmm. It's more rural, rural land. And as you are aware, there's some sort of an amendment which they propose, Section 25 of the Constitution, which we objected to, as well as other, opposition parties. And I don't think that thing is going to pass, because you need a 2/3 majority. But coming back to the city of Cape Town, you're quite right. People are migrating to the Western Cape because the Western Cape is better than the rest of the other provinces in the country. Historically, from before 1994 and post 1994. And not because only the DA is in charge, you don't understand. So I was there, commissioner, and the time of the NP and the time of the NP and the ANC coalition. So the Western Cape was always a step ahead. Housing is a problem. The informal housing is picking up like mushrooms here in the metro, uncontrolled. First, you have to control it and make sure that there's no land grabbing, and the problem which we are facing here is that these illegal squatters camps rose on private land, where you can't actually, as the city and government, provide infrastructure, because it's not government property. But to address this particular issue, you've got the housing, waiting list and the procedures attached there too. And there's an allegation that people from the Eastern Cape or some other provinces came to the Western Cape, and then they want to get be treated with the necessary preference, preferential treatment. They deliberately, go and put up these structures, and in place where wetlands. When once the winter comes, then there's flooding, and as you know, once you want to remove them, the courts here says no. If you want to remove people, you have to provide them with alternative housing. Now, in that way, they demand their houses, and that becomes a problem, a pricky pear for the metropole, because the backyard dwellers, as well as those on the list, they become frustrated, and then you will get some public unrest. But what is important is to assess what is available, in the city, what government land, state land is available for development, and whether there's properties of government which can be used for this particular purpose, like this parliamentary villages which the government has in the Western Cape. So you can convert that into housing. It depends on the negotiations and with the national government, as well as the provincial government, to the extent that they are involved into that particular projects. But yes, land should be identified, state land, and that land needs to be developed to accommodate people. We can't, South Africa is a democracy. People got the freedom of movement and association, and they've got the right to dignity as well. And you can't prevent people coming to the Western Cape. You have to plan ahead, and in that case, it is important to do scenario planning and to see how best you can address the particular issue, which is a very, very critical issue.
Now, it's interesting. You said that the courts say that what happens is when squatters come and occupy someone's land, you can't just kick them off, because then you have to provide a home for them. What a good deal. I mean, you come and occupy someone's land illegally, and then the state's responsible, or the city or the metro or the province, for giving you a home. That's a pretty crazy situation. But yeah, now here's something else you mentioned. The Western Cape has seen a mass in-migration for the past couple of decades. I've noticed that each time I return to the mother city, I noticed that the makeup of the city and different parts of the city has changed a bit. Historically, it's an overwhelmingly colored and white town, Cape Town, my experience. But I've noticed people from other parts of the country coming in, speaking different languages. And I'm guessing that's because the city's attractive, either because of the environment or the opportunity to make a living there, or just the governance. It's simply because the same sort of thing here in the States. We're constantly told by our lying, lamestream, fake stream media that the U.S. is a systemically racist country. Yet people of color from all over the world are flooding into our country unendingly, trying to get into the place that's the most systemically racist in the world. We hear the African National Congress complain about DA governance and about the Western Cape, yet people continue to flock to the Western Cape. What's the magic? Is it the opportunity there? People just like the mother city, or is it just what's the secret?
Yeah, you see, the Western Cape is the province with the lowest unemployment rate. Yeah, and you see, and the businesses and investment here is more than in other provinces, and the services which they need, government services like water, sanitation, and so forth, is and also transport, is much better than other provinces. So the living standards is much better, and conditions is much better than other provinces, because you didn't receive any complaint, not even one single complaint about, if you look into the Zondo Commission about corruption, of the magnitude which we have experienced, what take place in the rest of the country under ANC governance, and that it is a problem, because the money has been spent mostly, although not perfectly. No political party is perfect, but I think the current government try actually to spend the money for the purposes it is meant for.
Now, if I look at a map of the boundaries for the city of Cape Town, because the ANC back in the late 1990s consolidated metros and lumped a bunch of things in, It includes the international airport, the Cape Flats, all the way down to the Cape of Good Hope. It's quite a large physical area. Now, this may not be fair to the city of Cape Town, but as a frequent traveler and landing at the Cape Town International Airport, when I landed at OR Tambo, not that I'm a fan of big hotels and casinos, but that's the image you see right there when you land at OR Tambo as you head out of the airport. But when you land at Cape Town, one of the first sites that gets you, I don't want to say assault you, maybe I do want to say assault you, is informal settlements right outside as you head into the mother city, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And so this informal settlement situation, the shacks and houses you mentioned a little bit ago, I think one of my viewers is surprised to find out that people are putting informal settlements, squatting on land that's in wetlands. That's not a surprise. That's been going on over the past year and a half. But is there something that can be done about this, or is there such a backlog of houses that it'll take decades for any governing party to address this in a significant fashion?
Yeah, the demand is huge. The supply is not going to keep up with the demand because people are being born on a daily basis, they mature on a daily basis, and everyone need houses. So I can't actually tell you to say with certainty that that particular day that problem is going to be solved. I don't think government would be able to solve that particular problem. You see, the problem is the Constitution made provision for access to a house. And the government started providing it. It was, if you read our Constitution, it says each and every person should have access. Access. It means, it's not to say you must get a house. You must have an opportunity, access to build your own house. You understand? But government started by providing free houses, and they have to continue with it. But the budget is not there to provide for each and every one. And we can only overcome this problem once we got minimize our unemployment rate, create more jobs, so that people can have the finance, earn money and finance to buy or build their own houses, and you provide maybe a plot for them to actually to build on. But otherwise, I can't see any possibility that in the near future that we will solve it. But with regards to the site which you see, once you come with the plane, it's a ugly sight when you come from a different country and you got some sort of a brochure there where they only picture all these nice places in Cape Town, and to your surprise when the plane actually moved down and you see this different side, that is a bit scary. But yeah, it depends where your airport was developed. That time when the airport was developed, that scene was not there. That area was not like that. Similar to Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo was actually luckily developed in the industrial area, business area. And here is just on the other side of Cape Town. But it is not good for tourism, and your image of your country. But it is a reality, and we have to live with it.
No, absolutely. Folks, you're listening to Chris White, Africa. Special feature today, special guest, special time, Lennit Max. He's a candidate for the mayoral position in the mother city in South Africa. That's Cape Town in the Western Cape. He's running as a candidate in the ward and also at the top of the proportional representation list for the Freedom Front Plus, a party he recently joined out of a desire to serve the people of Cape Town. And there just comes a super chat sticker in from Drunken Yoda. I think that means mic drop. I think Drunken Yoda likes what you had to say there. So that's a pretty good one. But I'm talking to Lennit Max about his candidacy and about some of the challenges that are faced in Cape Town. Well, here's one, and we should talk about this. We're now approaching day 560 of Cyril Ramaphosa's 3 weeks to get the hospital beds ready for the onslaught. And we seem to have more waves than surfers ever see at the beach with this pandemic that's going on here. The National Coronavirus Command Council is what I believe, based on your constitution, to be unconstitutional lockdown measures. In fact, the North Gauteng High Court agreed with me, and the government just ignored that last year. But this lockdown has had a devastating impact in Cape Town's economy, hasn't it? I mean, the tourism was a big part of your economy, and international tourism arrivals and domestic arrivals are pretty much toast. They're gone. Do you have any thoughts on if Cape Town's going to be able to recover from this, and how much time it might take? And is there anything that Freedom Front Plus can do to help accelerate the recovery once this happens? Of course, right now the big sticking point is a lot of tourists come from the UK, and South Africa remains on this red list, but it might come off in the next 10 days. So I know it was a lot of questions there, but basically, what damage has the lockdown done to your tourism industry, and what can the Freedom Front Plus do, if anything, to help recover?
Yes, you're quite right. I think that the COVID-19 was devastating the world over. It damaged the economy of all countries, but to a different extent. In the Western Cape, in this particular Cape Town, given the fact that we could not get tourism, and your hotels and your bed and breakfast institutions and restaurants, they suffered a lot, even locally, because not only as a result of tourism, but the local people could not even enjoy those facilities. It opens up recently, and it's getting better. I just arrived from N1 City, and the place look a bit busier than before. So we need to see how we can actually assist business to get to grips with this particular, and to overcome the losses which they suffered during the COVID-19. And for that particular reason, one of my objectives is that to involve business, the business forum, to address the city, to make some sort of a presentation about what is their short-term, medium, and long-term objectives. What do they envisage with regards to local business and tourism per se, and then spell out to us as the city and as government, what do they expect of us? What to do to make it for them, convenient and conducive. The situations in Cape Town, so that they can operate to the full, and so that they can also increase, invite other businesses to invest, as well as to increase tourism. So yes, it's a very crucial thing, because job creation is depending on business, and for that particular reason, we can't turn a blind eye, and we must be a very active partner with business and assist them wherever we can, and with the resources which what we have.
Well, it is, I think, a huge challenge. We've seen amongst the protests that have taken place, the lawful assembly protests over the past year or so, a number of them in Cape Town, from the tourism industry, from the hospitality industry. And sadly, we saw police response to that, which was a bit disappointing. Last year, police water cannoning a lawful assembly where people maintained their social distance, and they still attacked them with water cannon. It was a bit silly chasing them away from the Parliament building where they're authorized to be. But that's another challenge. I think a lot of people who are not from South Africa don't realize that although the capital is in Pretoria, the Parliament meets in Cape Town, right there in the mother city. And that has a big impact. Does the presence of the Parliament make a big impact from your point of view on how the city does business, or is it not really germane? It wouldn't matter whether it's in Pretoria or Bloemfontein or Durban or Cape Town? Or is the presence of the Parliament have some sort of political influence or impact on governing the city?
As a lay person, I'm not in government where I can give you some figures and provide figures and so on. But I don't think it is the Parliament per se, is a huge contributor to the economy of the Western Cape in the city. But there's only some other LPs, MPs who actually came from other provinces who came here and then stay here during the week, and weekends they leave. So it's not like tourism where people from other countries come and invest. So it is locally, but it doesn't have, according to my own observation, because I was there for 3 years and 6 months, at the Portfolio Committee of Correctional Services as a DA MP. And what I have observed is that that it is not that huge impact on the economy at all.
Well, that's a fair answer from as someone, as you say, who's not in government. You're aspiring to get in there now, but you don't. So you're looking from the outside. But you, I think, are well positioned with decades of experience. From audience that don't know, you entered the police service in 1980 and retired as lieutenant general in 2003. You've also, on occasion, played advisory roles to the government regarding law enforcement since your retirement in 2003. So it's not as though you've stepped away from it. It's a topic you know a bit about that I'm about to enter into. So let me get into that. But before I do it, I noticed something in the press, and I just want to ask you about this because perhaps I just don't have the right information. But News 24 reports that they're having a chance to grill candidates Thursday at 1 p.m. And they're going to, according to this flyer they have here, it says, "Who will rule Cape Town? We grill the candidates. Brett Herron from the Good Party, Cameron Doug Moore from ANC, and Jordan Hill Lewis from the DA." This sounds like a round robin or a mini sort of debate. Are you and other candidates invited to this, or is this News 24 only picking the three parties they want to listen to?
Yeah, that is the only three. I also saw that yesterday. So I was not invited at all, but that is their choice.
Well,
maybe they thought that those are the parties who are who stand a better chance to become mayor, and they actually don't take any notice, of the Freedom Front Plus.
Well, that's exactly the point I was getting at. So, I mean, that's the media picking and choosing winners once again, and I think that's okay. Let's change to a little more topic here, and this one's a little bit disturbing and concerning, but I think it's one that you can speak to very well based on your experience as a law enforcement officer and as a leader in law enforcement for such a long period of time and having risen up. And this is the issue of violence in South Africa in general, but in the Western Cape in particular. I opened up my news last night to read a story about three high school friends who were murdered execution style in candiadte. I always mispronounce the township there in the Cape Flats. The presence of gangs, the presence of drug dealing, and this callous disregard for human life. It is beyond shocking. I mean, we saw what happened to Hannah Cornelius and her friend who was colored. When she gave him a ride home a couple years ago, they smashed his head in with a boulder, left him for dead in a vineyard. They gang raped her and threw her in the trunk, and then gang raped her again, drove around for hours getting high, and then she begged for her life, and they smashed her and murdered her. This callous disregard in the Western Cape for life, this must be a challenge for law enforcement. It seems to continue unabated. Is there an answer to this other than the standard things I would tell people is that two-parent families make a big difference, raising children, respect for life. But those are long-term solutions. Is there something that can be done about this, or is it just too complex an issue that you can only take a little bite here and a little bite there? Any thoughts about this? I mean, it's very disturbing, sir.
Yes, of course. That is our biggest problem. And that is, the safety of people. Once I start my conversations with journalists, and I place an emphasis on safety and security, then they think I'm biased. I'm not objective. But the thing is, nothing can happen in a situation where it is chaos, and no investment will take place in a country or a town where crime, which is infested with crime. And you have to create a situation which is conducive for investment and for people, the local people, to enjoy themselves, to participate in the economy. And yes, gangsterism, as I indicated, once the time when I took up position. Gangsterism, let me give you some history. When I joined the police in 1980, those years we had gangsters, but the gangsters were not that sophisticated. They had pangas, machetes, as you people are better known, machetes,
Yep.
and zip guns, not the real gun, but zip guns. And you could control them to a certain extent because you are armed and they were not armed. And over the years, they became more sophisticated because of the American movies, you people's movies. And they actually copycat those things. And obviously, as a result of the corruption in the police and other security agencies who sold and firearms which was supposed to be destroyed in terms of the law to gangsters. And the Western Cape and the rest of the country has been flooded with illegal firearms, and also firearms which they actually obtained during robberies at farms and at house robberies, etc. So it is not now a situation which you had in the 1980s. You sit now with a situation which is much more difficult and much more serious, not only to the ordinary citizens of the country, but also to law enforcement. And that poses a huge problem for government. Now, we sit with a minister, which I really thought, and when I joined him, that he's a person with vision, a national minister, Bekele, with vision and is open for new ideas. Only to find out the guy is very narrow-minded, and he's got a very overrated opinion of his own self, and not actually, willing to listen to advice. But nevertheless, I have proposed the anti-gang unit, which is of much help, but not the solution. You can't only depend on the anti-gang unit. But the problem what we are sitting with is our legal system as well. Once you arrest people here in South Africa, it's not like in America where life means life. Here, life is about 15 years. So if you committed 3 murders and the judge says you got 3 life sentences, the newspapers write as if this person got 3 life sentences. All of them run concurrent with each other. And only for the 3 lives that particular criminal took, he got only for 15 years, then he gets parole and is out on the system. And in the gang structure, the more serious the crime, the higher your promotion, up into the ranks. And it is a reward to go to jail, and not something which you who actually scares them. So what happened is that once they are in jail, they've got all the other facilities there, and as a result of corruption, the warders smuggled in the drugs and cell phones, which are not permitted to be in jail, but it is there. It is there. It's been used, and has been proven that how people actually took selfies, in jail and sent it out to family members or actually other gang members, and that shows you how broken is our legal system. The corruption is rife not only in the politics but in the rest of especially in your criminal justice system. And once your criminal justice system is not reliable, then you are heading for a disaster in your country. You are heading for a failed country. But luckily, some courts gave us some surety, that the legal system, as far as the courts are concerned, is still strong. But with regard to the police, on a daily basis, you will find that police officers are either involved in the cash and transit, the robberies where they actually rob the cash vans, even rob people, and also theft of other things. So, and if they actually search your house and came to your house and search your house, and by many instances when the police leave, people are complaining that some of their stuff is gone, has been stolen. So it's a really problem. There's no confidence in the police. According to the latest survey, which was done by an institution here, shows that the police are the most corrupt in the eyes of the people. So to address crime, you cannot do it with a corrupt institution like the police. because the relationship with the police needs the community and the community needs the police. So there must be a healthy partnership which is based on mutual respect and trust. And at the moment, trust is lacking, and some instances respect as well, because in the police act in many cases, the disrespectful, against towards the community, and as a result lose respect. So and trust. So we sit with a huge problem. But what happens in South Africa, our social circumstances is very serious. In the gang infested areas, you will find out that it is mostly in the poorest of the poor areas, where the poorest of the poor stays, where the gangs develop a second economy, by providing and paying for the rent of the people, providing for the school fees, providing for food if your people are hungry, and in return, their children must join the gang, and they must actually then also, hide illegal substances or firearms, etc., for the gang members as a reward. They get those money in other needs which any household actually requires.
Well, you make some really good points there. There's a comment from one of my viewers saying, I have great respect for this man. Some very high compliments being paid to you there, Lennit. In the chat, a few others came up. Now, from my perspective, from the outside looking in, I'm just concerned that the whole structure of this is just rotten from the core. I mean, of course, there's different competencies for people who don't know. You have the SAPS, that's the South African Police Service. That's a national competency, national police. And you also have metro police in major metropolitan areas like Durban, Joburg, and places like that. So, and the Cape Town, Cape Town, of course, but I just was mentioning a couple of them. So, of course, it's not just law enforcement and whether you have corrupt or untrained or insufficient. I mean, the SAPs can't even maintain evidence. The evidence lockers are a disgrace. They can't maintain DNA samples. They're over 400,000 samples behind now, I think it is. It just keeps climbing exponentially. So if you can't maintain evidence, how can you have a case? And the thing is that so few criminals are actually caught. And of those caught, so few are charged. And of those charged, so few are actually convicted. And of those convicted, so few go to jail. And then the system is further undermined when you have people who acquire strange life-threatening illnesses like Shakespeareitis or zoo malaria, similar to malaria, but apparently life-threatening, and it requires medical parole. Now we see a gangster who is killed someone asking for medical parole after just 3 years in jail for a life sentence. This example now is threatening to perpetuate throughout the entire, I call it criminal injustice system, and I call it the Department of Injustice. I do the same in the U.S., by the way. I consider my Department of Justice to be just as, well, not quite as bad as South Africa's, but this really creates a sense of frustration, I'm sure, for patriotic, hardworking police officers, of which there are many, many, many thousands, tens of thousands of them who really trying to make a difference, but they find themselves in a system, and those also in the criminal justice system. So it just makes for a colossal challenge. And I think this, like the housing thing, Lennit, it's something that a party, a city cannot fix on its own. It's going to take national effort by all South Africans to clean this mess up.
You're quite right. You're quite right. Luckily, that there are public institutions, non-governmental organizations, who actually watch government's performance with an eagle eye, and put pressure, on government. And they are very, very active, and as well as opposition parties as well, to bring about the checks and balances, which is so much needed in our country. So, and that's for that particular reason, when I assume office, whether as mayor or deputy mayor, whatever position, one of the negotiations would be that the Metro Police security structure will fall under my watch. Mm-hmm. Because you have to make sure that they don't become what is the sepsis at the moment, because there's no proper control. People are not being appointed because of qualifications and senior positions. They appoint cadres which they can control, because the police is a national institution, an entity, and they put cadres there which they can control, not necessarily put people there who can serve the people. And that is our problem. With regards to the Zuma and the Zuma issue, where he is getting parole, now, Arthur Fraser is a comrade, it's a comrade. He got a history, in the intelligence of the ANC. And he granted it. And I can assure you, he didn't do it on his own accord, you know?
Sure.
Oh, no. The structures told him, man. I'm telling you. And don't be surprised if it was from the number one's office.
The very top. The very top.
Yeah, because they are entering now in election, and Zuma got huge support. And if those people is not going to come vote in the election, then obviously they're going to lose some municipalities. In other words,
they'll lose Durban for sure.
Precisely. And once you lose municipalities, you lose power.
Yep.
So they rather sacrifice the legality of the law, in favor of assuming power and gain power by votes and satisfy Zuma's supporters by giving him actually a medical parole. And that, creates distrust in our legal system, and that our legal system is only there to punish a particular group of people, and others are actually above the law. You understand? And they can do as they wish, and they will be treated with gloves. While the others on the other side, you must actually go through the whole process, and you have to sit and your time out in jail. So, and that is not good. That you have this unequal treatment of citizens of this country, or we are not equal before the law in South Africa as long as the ANC is in power, and we can only solve that and to remove the ANC, but that is a long shot.
Well, it all starts on November 1st by removing them from power in all the metros where opposition parties can either take an outright majority or form a coalition with like-minded parties. Then the ANC, that gives the opposition 2 years for transparent governance, responsive governance, legitimate governance, and service delivery to prove to voters across South Africa that there is an alternative to the ANC. I mean, the party that couldn't provide ammunition for its saps in KwaZulu-Natal, the party that, despite my prediction on the 29th of June of violence and chaos erupting should Zuma actually go to jail on the 29th of June, sits there on the 8th of July and is surprised that the Mooi River Plaza comes under attack, and then sits around and pretends that this wasn't some sort of orchestrated or organized effort by somebody when radio stations were destroyed. Why? They have nothing to do with food. There's no stereos in there. When a water facility was attacked and sabotaged, when a crematorium was destroyed, what are you stealing the bones to eat those? It's ridiculous. And then we saw ammunition stolen from containers in Durban. The list goes on and on. But it's interesting because I think this is a national scandal, Lennit. And if we can keep you for just a little bit longer, a couple key questions I want to get to. Can you hang around for a few more minutes? I know you've got some other engagements.
Yeah, I've got another interview.
Okay.
But I can give you another 5 minutes.
All right, let's do this very quickly then. Thank you very much. So I think the scandal that's not being talked about here, and you just touched on it, Arthur Fraser was with Jacob Zuma when he was in charge of Mkhonto we Sizwe's military intelligence. And he is a brother and a fellow traveler. I think the bigger scandal here is not that he got medical parole, but that Arthur Fraser didn't recuse himself. And number one. And number two, that not only did not recuse himself from the situation, but he overruled the medical panel's board, which said, no, he cannot have medical parole. This is a scandal that the media is completely glossing over and ignoring. This is a national disgrace. This person has no business having any say over something where he's been a lifelong friend and pal and who he owes his advancement in life and his status. And that's just completely wrong. That's not being talked about. Very quickly, the SAPS, nothing but a patrons network. I mean, all I got to say is Jackie Salibe. This guy actually ran Interpol for a while. He's as crooked as the day is long. But what I want to get to, the last question here, really a focus on, and you can address those points if you want when you respond, but is The Freedom Front Plus is not the Freedom Front. At the end of apartheid, the Freedom Front was formed by General Viljoen and others. They came together, and it had a reputation being extreme right-wing, whether it was true or not or deserved. It had a reputation being extreme right-wing Afrikaner nationalism party that's trying to, restore apartheid or something like that. That was a reputation, rightly or wrongly, and I think mostly wrongly, it was given to it. But the Freedom Front Plus under Dr. Peter Groenewald, from what I've seen, appears to be a party that is welcoming anyone to their standard, that agrees with their positions and is like-minded. And so I think that's a fair question. You're a colored South African, yes, and you've come to this party to stand as its candidate for mayor. Obviously, you must not have any concerns about the Freedom Front Plus being a whites-only party. Do you see the Freedom Front Plus making inroads or efforts to reach out to other communities, in particular the colored community in the Western Cape?
That's right. As in South Africa, we've got the past.
Yep.
Pre-1994. We had the homeland systems, where the Africans, Transkei and Ciskei, and so forth. But the colors were staying with the white people in the rest of South Africa. So the interaction there came for over a lot of years, 45, 50 years. They are more closer to each other than colored people to black people, because we were deprived, in terms of the apartheid laws. So the relationship is much closer. They understand each other much better, because over the years they built those relationships and understanding. Yes, the Freedom Front, I was also scary for them, about them when they started off in 1994. But I was still in the police, and I had my reservations as well. But really, we are saying we want to build South Africa, and we want to build a nation. And the Freedom Front Plus evolves now from this Afrikaner thing to a party which will be inclusive of minorities. Because what we have realized, Chris, is that as we progress from 1994 into the 20th century, that the affirmative action, which were meant actually also to include colored people, were used against colored people and place us, and Indian people, and place us in the same boat of the Afrikaner. Now, we've got a relationship, and we've got a historical connection, and they reach out to us. So if they actually extend the hand of cooperation, we as the colored and Indian and other minorities cannot actually decline that invitation, because otherwise the ANC is going to chase us into the sea. If we have to do something and stand together and ensure that we build a future for ourselves, for our children, and for our grandchildren, because once we are not there, they will ask, what did my father or my grandfather did to secure a future for us as well? So it is for that particular reason, that is the binding factor between us, that we are in the same boat. The ANC don't discriminate against the white, the colored, and the Indian anymore. They even say we were discriminated, but less discriminated. So they don't regard us as part of them. They will say black people, in general, but African in particular. They make an exception on the rule. So you are not counted in that sense. So where are you? They put you with the whites. No, let us stand together. And for that reason, more and more colored people became aware that the ANC is not the party who cares for them. We have to do something. We can't wait for the government to change our lives and our conditions. We have to work together with like-minded people like the Freedom Front, so that we can actually secure our own future. You refer to this burning down and ransacking of businesses in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. Now, those people thought They damage other people's property and government property. They damage their own property, their own assets, where they actually can buy things, go buy a bread. No, those things are not available anymore.
Yep.
And it inconvenes them. Now, just on the other side, you got those people who was destructive. The Afrikaner on the other side, you know what they did under these circumstances where they were deprived from government jobs and all that stuff? They didn't go and sit in the corner and cry and say, have sympathy for us and help us and ask, foreign countries give us money. No, you know what they did? They built university and they built technical colleges and they trained, despite that they have been discriminated against, they trained people of all races in those things. They are busy with upliftment. The other people is busy with destruction. No, I cannot be part of destruction. I want to be part to build and build South Africa, build our future for ourselves and make it a better place. We cannot wait for government. We have to take hands so that we as the Freedom Front can be, watch the space. This election on the 1st of November is only the stepping stone for the Freedom Front. It's the first time that the Freedom Front go big with other races. We've got even Africans with us, people who feel that they are also be deprived and sidelined by the ANC. They want also be part of the Freedom Front to ensure better South Africa. It's not all black people who actually support the ANC and who think like the ANC, who wants to be destructive. No, they see that this white people with the Afrikaner, they've got sense. They can think, they can plan, they can develop. Look at their farms, the mega farms. They are busy with empowerment of people, and government is so stupid that they don't even include the Afrikaner into their government, so that we can become a better place. They keep them there aside and they mess on their own this side. You understand? Instead of that, take that, say for instance, from the 30 ministers, 5 who are colored, 5 who are white. You understand, right? And all interest is being represented there in government. Then we pull this country forward. No, they push us away, and if they could send us and chase us into the sea, they will do so as well. But therefore, we stand together. We are saying we are South Africans, and we've got a legitimate right in South Africa to be here, to participate in the economy, to build this country, and no one is going to deprive us from that opportunity.
Well, amen. Advocate Lennit Max, Lieutenant General, retired from the South African Police. I feel like I'm back in church there, brother. That was an excellent sermon to wrap things up. But before I let you go, first off, bye donkey. I really appreciate your time. It's very generous of you. This is an odd time for my audience, so there'll be a lot more people viewing this after the fact because I'm usually on later. But I do have to give you 2 high compliments from my audience. One is from a firefighter who has family in the Western Cape. He comes to Cape Town frequently, but he lives up in Gauteng. That's Paulie. And he said, with absolute respect to the advocate, having listened to him, he would make a fantastic national SAPS commissioner and would be far more effective than there as opposed to being the Cape Town mayor. Well, I would agree because he'd have national reach, but that's a high compliment. And then I got a super chat that came in from an American, Drunken Yoda, who says, talking solo to us and no teleprompter. This, of course, is someone who I think is a fan of Donald Trump. So the point here is that you were speaking from the heart and from your head. to the audience here, not looking at a teleprompter, not making it up as you went. I think that puts you in good stead as a populist candidate for office. And I want to wish you the best of luck. And you have an open invitation to come back on the program. In fact, I'd like to invite you back before we get to the election to see how things are going. I didn't even get a chance, because time is short, to unpack your upbringing. You, like myself, didn't exactly have an ideal childhood. You overcame a lot of obstacles. You rose to be, I had to become a lieutenant general, but we were in different services, so I didn't have that opportunity. But you became a lieutenant general. And so I'd like to, talk a little bit about your background in future conversation, if you don't mind. And with that, Lennit Max, I'd like to give you the last word, and then I'm going to close up the stream after you get a chance to say something.
Chris, I just want to thank you. And I think I'm very thankful and humbled by those comments, which they actually extend to me. I really appreciate it. I didn't do it, and I didn't expect any compliments, but it is good that other people can also see your heart and your commitment to serve your country. Thank you so much, and you are welcome to invite me again.
Absolutely. Well, I do have to share this one thing with you. When candidates are on my program and they're running for office and people indicate which way they're going to vote, including here in the States, I kind of tell the candidates. So one of my viewers, I wrote an article about the ANC and about voting for opposition parties that was just published on Morning Shot's website this week. After reading that, this viewer said, "Okay, Chris, I think you're right. I think I'm going to vote DA this time." I wasn't pushing the DA. I was just saying vote for the opposition party that has a chance to win an outright majority. And he said, "I think you're right. I'm going to vote with my head. I think I'm going to vote DA." Well, after listening to you, he's just changed his mind. He's voting Freedom Front Plus again. That was his original intent. All righty, there you go. There's one vote. So, and he's in Cape Town. So there you go.
Thank you. From where is it, listener?
He's from Cape Town. He's from Cape Town.
Okay, no, yeah. That's good.
So that really counts. That's just some American saying, "I'd like to vote for you, but I can't."
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll let you go. Thank you very much, and best of luck with the other interviews, and good luck in your campaign. We'll get back with you before the election. All right?
Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers. There you go, folks. Lennit Max, advocate, candidate for the mayor position in Cape Town, the mother city in South Africa, one of my favorite destinations. Wonderful Mediterranean climate, fascinating people. The Muslim community there is unbelievably interesting. The colored community, always entertaining folks, great sense of humor despite all the challenges in life. And the Afrikaans speaking community, whether it's colored or white, fascinating group as well. Plus, you still run into some Khoi and San folks around there. Really interesting place to go. And of course, while I like Cape Town, I'm a bigger fan of Stellenbosch, and I love Paarl and Franschhoek, of course. What a beautiful area. Lennit Max, former Lieutenant General, retired from police service in South Africa, now a candidate for mayor of Cape Town with the Freedom Front Plus. He's running on a ward seat, and he's also at the top of the list for the party for proportional representation. So we should see him on the council regardless of how the Freedom Front does in this election. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. Appreciate the support for the channel. Paulie just gave a super chat. It hasn't come up yet and says, "Great interview. Saps lost a good man leader. Clear to see." Absolutely, Paulie. Absolutely. But that's by design, I would argue. It's intentional. The police service and the government cannot tolerate having people that are patriotic, legitimate, honest, and who don't engage in race hustling. Did you hear the gentleman ever once engage in race hustling in this conversation? Nope. He talked about South Africans. Yes, we talked about coloreds later on, but that was in the context of people being marginalized and why a number of people who are non-traditional voters for the Freedom Front Plus may, in fact, be moving to their standard. Anyway, thank you very much. God bless. I'll be back on the program here in a little less than 2 hours for the Indaba Africa News of the Day. Once again, tune in for that. Some developments in South Africa, across Africa, and the world that you might find interesting today. Thank you, everybody. Be sure to smash the like button before you leave, because it's unusual time. We have a smaller audience than usual. Hopefully, it'll grow after this. We appreciate it. And feel free, please, go and leave a comment on the video. Leave your comments there. I really do appreciate that. Paulie says, yes, of course, he was too effective. Yep, he was honest. Well, same like me, Paulie. I don't pussyfoot around and dance around things. I'm honest with people. Now, you don't tell the emperor he's not wearing any clothes in public. That's just not good form. But in private, if the emperor is naked, you say, "Sir, you're not wearing any clothes." Or, "Ma'am, you're not wearing any clothes." And there you have it. Anyway, folks, thank you very much. Appreciate your support for the channel. And we'll catch you here later on Chris White Africa. Cheers, everyone. And thank you to my guest, my special feature guest, Lennit Max, candidate for mayor in the mother city of Cape Town. Cheers, everybody. See you shortly.